Donbas for peace? That's the whispered deal on the table as Trump and Putin meet in Alaska. Moscow keeps its conquests, Kyiv gets a ceasefire. But in a war where every kilometre was paid in blood, is this a breakthrough or betrayal? As Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin prepare for their high-stakes meeting in Alaska, the question of Ukrainian territory sits at the centre of any potential peace agreement. Russia currently occupies nearly 1/5 of Ukraine's land, and the proposals emerging from recent diplomatic exchanges reveal the stark challenges ahead. Last Friday, Trump himself suggested a ceasefire deal could involve some swapping of territories, though he provided no specifics about which areas might be affected. Both Ukraine and Russia have publicly rejected the concept, but behind closed doors, the conversations continue. One proposal that has reportedly reached US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff during his Moscow meetings would require Ukraine to surrender the remainder of the eastern Donetsk region and Luhansk, collectively known as the Donbas, in exchange for a ceasefire. The practical reality of such an arrangement presents enormous obstacles. The situation has grown more complex this week as Russian forces have made significant advances northeast of Dobropilia in Donetsk. While Ukrainian officials have downplayed these developments as infiltration by small Russian units, they have quietly sent reinforcements to the area. Ukrainian sources on the ground paint a more concerning picture, describing months of relentless Russian pressure that has finally found a weak point to exploit. For Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, ordering tens of thousands of civilians and troops to voluntarily abandon Donetsk would be politically devastating. Many residents and soldiers would likely refuse such orders. The logistics alone appear nearly impossible, evacuating tens of thousands of people within the compressed timeframe that any peace agreement would demand, all while Russian forces continue their summer offensive. The question of what Russia might offer in return reveals another fundamental problem. Moscow holds small strips of border territory near Sumy and Kharkiv, areas the Kremlin calls buffer zones that resulted from less successful incursions designed to drain Ukrainian manpower. But these territories are tiny compared to what Ukraine would lose. And as Ukrainian officials point out, they are simply Ukrainian land, not Russian territory that could constitute a meaningful exchange. French President Emmanuel Macron provided some clarity Wednesday, stating that Trump was very clear during a call with European leaders that Washington wants to secure a ceasefire and that Ukraine's territorial issues cannot be negotiated without its president, Volodymyr Zelensky. The broader territorial picture shows Russia's maximalist ambitions. Moscow holds most of Donetsk and nearly all of Luhansk, but controls only about 2/3 of Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions respectively. Ukraine liberated parts of Kherson from Russian forces in late 2022, and any agreement that would hand over Ukrainian-controlled portions of these regions would require vast population relocations, including the evacuation of the entire bustling city of Zaporizhzhia. Zelensky has consistently warned that any territory conceded to Russia would simply become a launching pad for future invasions, pointing to Crimea as evidence. Russia illegally annexed the peninsula in 2014 and later used it as a base for the full-scale invasion in 2022. The Friday summit in Alaska represents more than territorial negotiations. It addresses fundamental questions about European security, international law, and the balance of global power. Few experts expect immediate breakthroughs, given the vast gulf between Russian demands for regional dominance and Ukraine's determination to align with the West. The territorial dimension alone presents seemingly insurmountable challenges. Earlier this week, President Zelensky revealed that Russia wants the remaining 9,000 square kilometers of Donetsk region in return for a ceasefire. As Zelensky put it,
Ukraine could not agree. particularly for so little in return.
The Ukrainian public would be equally unlikely to accept handing over more territory to their invaders. Ukraine has indicated willingness to accept a ceasefire along current front lines, followed by future discussions about occupied territories. This represents a significant shift from previous positions. For years, European allies and the Biden administration declared they would never recognize Russian control over occupied Ukrainian territory. Since Trump's return to the White House, however, there has been a notable softening of this stance, with quiet consideration of frozen front lines as a starting point. Security guarantees present another major obstacle. Russia demands Ukrainian neutrality, which in practice means a weakened neighbor with no Western ties. Previous Russian negotiating positions, still referenced by the Kremlin, called for reducing Ukraine's military to a token 50,000 troops. Russia also continues to demand Ukraine be denazified, widely interpreted as calling for Zelensky's removal from power. Ukraine seeks NATO membership, but the United States has rejected this path, leaving Kyiv searching for alternative security arrangements. Britain and France have promised to lead a predominantly European reassurance force that would enter Ukraine following any stable ceasefire, though Russia opposes this deployment. Economic sanctions add another layer of complexity. Russia wants all sanctions lifted, but Trump can only speak for American policy. The UK and European Union are likely to maintain their hostile stance unless Ukraine signs a comprehensive peace agreement. Putin's advisor Yuri Ushakov indicated Thursday that the leaders would discuss broader cooperation, including in the trade and economic sphere, suggesting Russian hopes for expanded bilateral arrangements. War crimes and reparations cannot be simply set aside. The International Criminal Court maintains an arrest warrant against Putin over the forced transfer of approximately 20,000 Ukrainian children to Russia. Zelensky has requested their return as a first step in any peace discussions, but the legal obligations remain. As human rights lawyer Wayne Jordash notes,
Ukraine remains under an obligation to investigate war crimes and crimes against humanity against its own citizens.
Practical issues add further complications. Russia holds more than 8,000 Ukrainian prisoners of war compared to Ukraine's smaller number, making equal exchanges challenging. Russia also controls the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's largest, and shows signs of wanting to restart operations and connect it to Russia's energy grid, a transfer Ukraine cannot recognize but may be powerless to prevent. For Ukraine, the best outcome would be Trump quickly recognizing that no acceptable deal exists and implementing promised secondary sanctions against Russia's major energy customers, India and China. However, the complex relationship between Trump and Putin, which has often seemed to override broader American security interests, makes the Alaska summit's outcome highly unpredictable and potentially unfavorable to Ukrainian interests.